You are listening to One Nation Under Crime, a historical, chronological true crime podcast. Each week, we go through our nation's history and discuss cases from each year starting in 1800. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah. I'm back.
We are back. And yes, we are recording separately this week again. So if it sounds odd, sorry.
But we're kind of together again. I know y'all missed me.
Sure.
I missed you.
Yes, Leah did listen to the episode for those who were wondering. She said she does not sound like one of the mice from Cinderella.
I do not.
Like I did at the end of the episode, but either way, I tried. So we're back this week with another fun episode. I say fun in quotes for a few reasons. We got a lot of history to pack into this episode, actually.
That's exciting.
We'll see.
I like history.
You do, but this is one of those that it's like, God, we got to go through a lot of history because that's kind of part of what we do here. But
but that's the best part.
I know. So we've got a lot of history to go through this week. It's going to be more history than anything. There is one, I guess, person per se that we're going to highlight as far as crime this week, but we're actually going to talk about two different people and two different stories. So, and there's a reason for each of them. But we'll go into that once we get there. Our sources for this week, we have The French Quarter by someone that we know, Herbert Asbury, the one that wrote Gangs New York City.
Oh, I thought, I was like, do we know them personally?
Not personally, no.
Okay.
We also have Murderpedia. Been a while since I've been to that site, but it's always
still
such
kind
a
of
good
fun
one.
to say.
It is. It's a really great resource to pull from in general.
It rolls off the tongue.
It does. And then a website called American History and Unpopular Tales.
Oh.
Yes. So
it's kind of intriguing.
It is intriguing, and it's because one of the people that we're going to discuss, we'll say their story was kind of maybe forgotten for a while. And we'll see.
Kind of like Alexander Hamilton?
It's a bit more and a bit darker than that. I'll say this person has actually been in some, has been the subject of a TV show, actually, an episode of a TV show. So we'll get to that one. It's pretty interesting. So, interesting that both of the, I'll say the dichotomy of both of the people we're going to discuss and their stories are interesting. So,
pulling out some big words at the beginning here.
I got to sound fancy. So like I said, we're going to get to our events. We are in 1861 this week. And
look at us.
To put Leah on the spot, do you recall what occurred in 1861?
1861.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'll say big year for the United States.
No, I don't know. Give me a hint.
The Civil War.
The Civil War.
There you go. Look at you. See, you knew all along. So I put spoiler alert, mass chaos erupts with the start of the Civil War in the U.S.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm bad with numbers.
It's all right. So some of the events, we're going to kind of do the events of this year a little bit differently than I typically do because there's so much that revolves around the Civil War. I'm actually going to split some things into general months instead of individual dates because we could be here forever.
Well, I mean, if we're in wartime, of course.
Right, exactly. And then we're going to kind of go back to than other specific events that were outside of the Civil War that occurred, that are just other kind of little notable things here and there that
Hey,
happened
I'm
that
gonna
weren't a
throw
part.
something out here. We need
Mhm.
a musical about the Civil War so that I can remember the years, because I remember years from Hamilton because they're in the songs.
That's true.
So, hey, Lynn,
That's
let's do an Abraham Lincoln musical,
yeah,
or
that's
I'm just saying,
it would
or
end with a
somebody.
bang.
Ah, you're so
Sorry.
bad.
That was a bad one.
Or
I know.
just somebody. I mean, or find an obscure person. But hey, Lynn, help
I mean,
a
just yeah,
sister out with the dates.
it'd be super helpful. But I'll
I'd
say
be excited.
the way that I kind of split this up, I made sure that it kind of made sense contextually as to what was going on. So because I myself, even though like I remember studying this in school, I don't
Right.
quite fully remember studying this in school.
Well, I mean, like I remember things, but I don't remember dates.
Right.
Look, if numbers are involved, I am not your girl. I'm
So
just saying.
we'll start in January of 1861. So the states started voting on seceding from the Union or staying with the Union in a sense. If we
Right.
remember back to the last episode, I said that in December of 1860, South Carolina had just voted to secede, making it the first state to secede from the Union.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to kind of go into more of South Carolina. South Carolina is actually where the Civil War kind of kicked off, I guess you could say. That's where the first battle occurred. So South Carolina actually does have a pretty big place, which is kind of why I went backwards to talk about it, even though it was 1860. But in January of 1861, the states started voting to see kind of where they were going to go. The states that voted to secede and this is in the order of voting, and the order of which they came out were Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana. And Delaware actually voted, but they voted to not secede from the Union.
Huh.
Yeah. And then at the same time, Kansas was admitted as the 34th U.S. state, and Jefferson Davis resigned from the Senate, and the Ordinance of Secession was officially ratified. So, and him leaving the Senate is a notable thing, which we'll get to.
Yes. Can I tell you, I went to school with someone whose name was Jefferson Davis and then their last name?
Wow.
Okay.
That's wow.
I just thought I'd share.
Wow. Alabama. Anyways.
We are Southern.
Yep. And on to February of 1861, Texas secedes from the Union and the Colorado Territory was organized. Delegates from the 6 seceded states met in Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery, to discuss the next steps in the start of the Civil War. These states collectively were known as the Confederate States, and they adopted the Provisional Constitution of the Confederate States. Like I said, Jefferson Davis had just left the Senate, and Jefferson Davis was elected as the provisional president by the Weed Convention that occurred in Montgomery, Alabama. Interesting convention name. It sounds like it would be more fun than it probably was.
Very, very high flying society.
It seemed, it. I will say it probably
liberal.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was also in Montgomery, Alabama. For a lot of you who do not know, there's actually a pretty good bit of Civil War history that's still in Montgomery. There's the pink White House. And yes, guys, like the White House of the South was pink for a while. So I remember seeing that in Alabama, kind of like your rite of passage, I guess, is like an elementary school student is going to Montgomery. Always remember doing that trip.
I had to tell you a fun fact. I have done a cartwheel on the lawn of the Alabama Capitol.
Well, fascinating.
As an adult. You're welcome. Very, very young adult. But But still, no alcohol was involved.
Surprisingly.
Look, you know me.
True. Also in February, the U.S. House passed a resolution to not interfere with slavery in any state. And President-elect Abraham Lincoln escaped his first assassination attempt.
His
in
first
Baltimore.
assassination attempt.
The first one, just the first. So then on to March, Abraham Lincoln is officially sworn in as the 16th president of the United States, and Hannibal Hamlin is sworn in
That's
as
a name.
It's very
Hannibal
interesting.
Hamlin?
Yeah, and a bit of a spoiler, not spoiler, somebody else, I'll say infamous with an HH also will come up in a bit. So the Nevada and Dakota territories were organized, and the Constitution of the Confederate States was officially adopted. On to April of that year, the official beginning of the Civil War occurred with the Battle of Fort Sumter in South Carolina. About to say California, did not happen in California. That's a little too far out west at this point.
Little too far.
Virginia seceded from the Union, and Robert E. Lee left the U.S. Army to command forces in Virginia. Maryland actually voted to not secede from the Union at this point, and the Union Army arrived in Washington, D.C., and President Lincoln outlawed doing business with Confederate states. So April of 1861 is really when all of it kicked off. You've got the Union Army arriving in Washington, D.C. You've got now the Confederate Army that's joining forces together, and Robert E. Lee has left the U.S. Army, and the first official battle, the Battle of Fort Sumter, has occurred. So really, like, we're
a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, we're in it now. April was a big time of year for that. So into May of 1861, Richmond, Virginia is made the capital of the Confederate States, and Arkansas, Tennessee, and South Carolina secede from the Union as well. Kentucky actually announced that it was neutral in the Civil War at this point.
Switzerland.
It's very interesting, but I had to note that specifically because we'll see why later on in the year. So the Camp Jackson affair occurred when Union forces and civilians fought in St. Louis, Minnesota, not Minnesota, Missouri, killing. I apparently wrote Minnesota. There's St. Louis everywhere, I'm gonna say. So St. Louis, Missouri. Actually, in it, 28 people were killed and over 100 were injured. And Queen Victoria issued a proclamation of neutrality, which recognized the breakaway states as having rights. And this was also when Queen Victoria said, "We're not helping. Like, we're not coming over there, but thank you for the invite."
Y'all handle your business.
Yeah, she said, "Thank you, but no thank you. I am fine." And then I just put June to July, Civil War continues, because it goes through a lot of battles that occurred that it was just too much to actually list and go through. So it just continued. Which, man, I can't imagine fighting in a war in the summer.
Ugh.
In a wool suit.
Oh, you know them men was stanking.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm
just saying, yeah. I love my husband. I have many men in my life who I love, but y'all boys kick up a funk. I'm just saying.
Can.
And I love y'all. I'm not saying girls can't, but boys in general.
Just a special kind.
It is. And I have some teenage boys in my life who I love. Ooh. And it's just, something just happens when y'all become teenagers. I don't know. But wool in the summer.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
And in such large numbers. I mean, y'all could probably smell them.
You probably could, honestly.
I mean, like, that's how you found them.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably how they did know. I mean, it's insane.
just my thoughts. Just my thoughts.
So on to August of that year, the Revenue Act of 1861 helps the government establish the first income tax. We thank you, President Lincoln, very much for that. And it was actually established to help pay for the war.
My husband did our taxes this weekend. Thank you. Wild. Thank you so very much.
The U.S. Army abolished flogging, and the first major battle.
Well, that's good.
It's a good thing to actually announce it, although I'm sure that was not the end of it. But anyways, and then the first major battle west of the Mississippi River occurred at the Battle at Wilson's Creek. So then in September, the Confederate Army entered neutral Kentucky, which forced the state to ask the Union for help. So remember, Kentucky was neutral. They were Switzerland. But the Confederate forces entered Kentucky, and Kentucky called the Union and was like, hey, we need help.
Uh-oh. Then they chose a side, basically.
We'll get there. Yes. They do choose a side. So forces under Union General Ulysses S. Grant bloodlessly captured Paducah, Kentucky, which gave the Union control over the mouth of the Tennessee River.
Can I just say,
a big win for them.
That town, I love the name Paducah.
It's a
Paducah, Kentucky. I have a friend. Yes, I have a friend whose aunt and uncle lived in Paducah, Kentucky. And anytime she would say, we're going to Paducah, I'd be like, say it again.
I know.
Just say it again.
Such a fun word.
It really is.
It's up there with Apalachicola.
Yes, which I've been to, by the way.
It's just a fun word.
Yes.
So on to October, Union forces under Colonel Edward Baker were defeated by Confederate troops in the second major battle of the war, which was the Battle of Ball's Bluff. Colonel Baker was actually a close friend of President Lincoln's, and he was killed in the
fight. That's so
kind
sad.
of another reason for Lincoln to kind of get a little bit more fired up about the Civil War in general. Confederate forces were defeated at the Battle of Santa Rosa Island, and Missouri passed a bill officially seceding Missouri from the Union. So now Missouri is also out of the Union too. We will now we'll find out in just a bit what happens with Kentucky. So because for some people it may not, well, obviously now, but it's a bit surprising knowing what occurred first. So anyways, in November of that year, President Lincoln appointed George B. McClellan as commander of the Union Army, and that replaced General Winfield Scott because General Scott's health had taken a pretty big turn at this point, and so General Scott stepped down.
So
Jefferson Davis.
I'm sorry, there's a Fort McClellan, right?
Yes, there is. Okay. Jefferson Davis was actually officially elected as the president of the Confederate States by this point. Missouri was admitted as the 12th Confederate state. And on December 10th, Kentucky seceded and was accepted by the Confederate States as well, which I find very interesting that the entire reason Kentucky ended up seceding is because they were actually, the Confederate forces came in first and they asked the Union for help. And then they ended up joining the Confederate side, which I find very intriguing.
That's confusing.
It is very confusing because you would think, well, they got help from the Union, so they're going to stay with the Union.
Right.
But if you know anything about the Mason-Dixon line, you know that Kentucky's south of that. So.
Yeah, but then why? That doesn't make sense.
It's wild. So
sounds like fake news.
I'm assuming what occurred is that whatever help they thought they were receiving was not the help they received. And all the more reason to kind of push back, I suppose. Exactly. Or what they wanted, or maybe it was more than what they wanted. And, there's no telling. So then, like I said, we had other events in that year that were just kind of, stand out things that occurred. January 6th of this year, the mayor of New York City proposed that New York become a free city and be allowed to trade with both the North and the South.
Well, that's very smart of him.
Yes, I just thought that was a very interesting. The city's going to be free, not the state, the city. We're going to be a free city.
He was shut down, but that was very enterprising of him.
Exactly. So January 15th, Elisha Otis patented the steam elevator. We all thank him for that.
Yes, and you'll see Otis on most elevators.
You sure will.
Either that or ThyssenKrupp.
Which honestly, my boyfriend's childhood friend, I think his family, has a company that like inspects elevators.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in the mountains and we were in an elevator or something. And my boyfriend just kind of looks over and he saw the thing where it said like the last time that it was inspected. And he goes, yeah. And he insert name a friend here. Yeah. He said that you'd actually be surprised, one, how little elevators are inspected, and two, that means nothing.
Well, that gives me great faith.
Well, yeah. So February 5th of this year, this is a word, and I got to make sure that I say this somewhat correctly. The kinematoscope. The kinematoscope. Yep.
Oh.
Was patented in Philadelphia by Coleman Sellers. Coleman applied stereoscopy to the existing principle of toy phantasmoscopes, which you will know what a phantasmoscope is when I tell you this next part, using rotated discs to present the illusion of motion. Do you remember the Viewmaster?
I wonder if that's what you were going to say it was.
That a Viewmaster is a phantasmoscope.
I gotcha.
And so what he did is he took the same principles of the what we all know as the Viewmaster. For those who aren't recollecting at the moment, there was a round disc that had photos on it, and it was kind of like binoculars, and this disc that was paper fit into the top, and you put the little binoculars up to your eyes, and then there was a little like a lever on the side for you to push down that would click through the different photos that you could look at. So that they basically use the principles of that to create moving pictures. So that's
clever.
Kind of it's the precursor to film, to like actual movies. So kind of interesting that was 1861. It just seems, in some ways, seems like it was so long ago, but not that long ago.
Yeah, but then once that technology started, it just like picked up and just took off.
Exactly. It's
just
crazy.
Amazing.
It's wild. February 27th, the U.S. Congress authorized the first stamped newspaper wrappers for mailing. March 2nd, the government printing office purchased its first printing plant. And I know you are going to ask, so I will say, I searched and could not find the answer to the question you are about to ask. But on March 22nd, the first nursing school was chartered in the United States. No, I could not at all find out the name of the school at all. Because
or what state?
Couldn't find anything. I could see that this was
a disappointment.
I know, I tried. I could find where, so this was the first nursing school that was chartered, not the first one that opened. So there's a big difference between those two things. Just because basically a charter is kind of, in a sense, you are granted permission to open this. So even though they were granted kind of the permission to do this, that doesn't mean that it actually physically opened that year. And the years that I kept finding for when the first nursing school opened were much later than this. So I couldn't find what that possible school was. But I think an event that's coming up kind of gives us an idea of where this might have occurred. May 20th of this year, the cornerstone of the University of Washington in Seattle was laid for the very first cornerstone for the university. And yeah, which is wild to me. One side of the United States is going through a civil war. The other side is building a college. To me, it's so wild that, worlds away. And July 17th, Congress authorized paper money, which is just funny because the people are just still carrying around like coins at this point constantly. Like, I don't.
But when you go, like when I went to Scotland, a lot of the coins, you have a 2-pound coin.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it's kind of wild to think about that now. So like I said, when I said about the nursing school, September 9th of this year, nurse Sally Tompkins was officially commissioned as an officer by the Confederate U.S. Army and would be the Confederate Army's only woman officer. And she was a nurse. So I think the allowed charter of a nursing school came out from the need of nurses in the Civil War.
That makes sense.
So especially because Sally Tompkins was commissioned as an officer, that's probably likely kind of where that thread comes from, as to where the need would come from. And it could have been a nursing school housed under the Army, whether that be the Union or the Confederate Army. That could have been where that kind of lied at that point. So October 22nd, the first telegraph line linking the East and West Coast was completed.
That's exciting.
So they could finally tell the West Coast,
hey, we're at war. Hey, get your gun.
And our last event for this year.
That's a lot for 1 year, man.
I know. A letter was written by Reverend Mark R. Watkinson that petitioned the Treasury Department to recognize God on American coins. The department eventually decided on the motto, "In God We Trust."
God we trust.
So that happened in 1861. So then on to our births for this year. These two sections are very short just because we have stuff to get through. But I told you HH was going to come back. And one of our births in 1861, May 16th, Herman Webster Mudgett was born. Some of you may know this name. Some of you may not know this name, but you know this man by another name. And we will cover this man. And I do not know if it will be 1 or 2 episodes or if it takes over the rest of my life. We shall see. Yes. But if you know Herman Webster Mudgett, then you know he is the infamous serial killer H.H. Holmes.
Oh.
Yes. So if anybody's read the book, The Devil in the White City, that's about him. So very fascinating. But June 29th, William James Mayo was born. You may know him because he's a physician medic and the co-founder
Mayo
of the Mayo
Clinic.
Yep.
Look at me.
Look at you. August 4th, Jesse W. Reno, interesting last name, because he was the inventor who built the first working escalator. Yeah.
How about that? I have him to thank for my embarrassment for my 6th grade birthday party. I went down the escalator at the Galleria. Yeah, it was a dare. Did not end well for me.
I wouldn't think so. And then on to another interesting birth of this year, September 30th. You should all probably know this name, or at least this last name, because William Wrigley Jr. was born. He is the chewing gum, yes, industrialist that we all know. And our deaths in 1861, we actually talked about this guy at the beginning of the events in this year. But after the steam elevator was actually patented by Elisha
Mr.
Otis on April
died.
8th, he died. He did. May 24th, Elmer E. Ellsworth, which that makes his initials EEE. Well, he was the first Union officer to die in the Civil War.
Well, that's sad that he died,
yes. But I know. June 13th. You all know this name if you've listened to our podcast. Richard Lawrence died. He is the one who failed to assassinate Andrew Jackson and was beaten with his cane. And
can I tell you that's my favorite episode so far?
I know.
Because it's so crazy.
And then our last death that we're going to go over this year, August 12th. I know I am not going to say this first name right.
Uh-oh.
Because it almost looks like elephant, but it's not elephant. It's Eliphalet.
Oh.
Yeah. Eliphalet Remington.
Oh.
You might know.
Has something to do with a gun. Mm-hmm.
Yep. He died on August 12th of 1861.
Well.
So for this week's episode, there are 2 women that we are going to discuss this week.
Uh-oh.
The first of those is Mary Jane Jackson. Well, she doesn't have a very long story, but it's important to talk about her story because it's a good kind of commentary on how the Civil War had widespread effects, kind of on every level, not just where the war was specifically fought, but also, man, she was not a great person, but man, he has a good story. If there were ever a woman that you were just like, God, I hate what you did, but I gotta respect the hustle. She's up there. So Mary Jane Jackson was a sex worker in New Orleans, Louisiana. She was described as, quote, husky.
That's horrible.
Full-bodied strumpet whose mop of flaming red hair had earned her the nickname Bricktop.
Oh, she's a brick.
Yeah.
Top.
It's yikes. Well, the thing that we do know about her...
Ain't nothing wrong with red hair. Ain't nothing wrong.
No, not at all. She was never one to back down from a fight and not one to be beaten in one either, regardless of if it was against a man or a woman.
Oh, heavens. She was not a lady.
She was. Let me tell you. Man, I claim her. Honestly.
She was a woman.
2 things can be true at one time. You can do some real bad stuff, but I gotta respect the hustle. Her crime spree officially began in 1856 when she clubbed a man to death for calling her a sexual slur.
Well, mind your manners, sir.
Yeah. Oh, on the same night, she stabbed another man named Long Charlie, who was almost 7 feet tall.
Oh, that's why that was his name. Okay.
Long Charlie, yeah. She, yeah, but I mean, you club one man to death, and then you stab another one who's 7 feet tall.
I mean, watch out, guys.
So, and the knife that she used was not a typical knife. It was specifically made for her.
So apparently she had a reputation.
Oh, it had a 5-inch blade on either side. And a large German silver grip in the middle.
This sounds like a Forged in Fire challenge.
It was intentionally made this way so that she could cut in any direction without having to change the position of the knife in her hand.
Wow. Have you seen that show, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. It would cut. This would kill. You know? I mean.
Wow. Enough for you to think of that. Not only do you want a knife personally made for you, but that is a lot.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, this is a forged in fire. And guys, if you've not watched the show, you need to watch it. It's awesome.
Her story gets wilder.
I'm ready.
While serving a short term in prison, she met a man named John Miller, who was a former boxer and the current jailer. Miller was an interesting man because he had previously lost a portion of his arm in a fight.
Oh.
But he decided to alter the portion of his missing arm.
Did he have a hook? Please tell me he had a hook. Oh, did he have a hook?
Into an iron ball with a chain on it, like a mace.
Oh my gosh, he had a mace! That's even better than a hook.
Remember how I said Mary was not one to back down from a fight?
Oh.
Well, one night, Miller beat her with a cowhide whip. First of all, she took the whip from him and beat him with it.
Wait. So she snatched the mace off of his little gift
No.
Oh.
She took the whip because he had a whip in his other hand. The cowhide whip.
I thought you said she took the mace. I was like, she took the mace off of his gimp arm. Oh my gosh. Okay. So she took the whip. Okay.
And beat him with it. And when he tried to hit her with the mace on his arm, she knocked him down, grabbed the iron ball in her hand, and dragged him across the floor.
Oh, no.
He used his free hand, and I guess only other hand.
His only hand.
To grab
that
a
was
knife.
Hateful.
Well, he's obviously not a good man. He used his free hand to grab a knife and he tried to stab Mary. But
didn't end well for him.
Not one to be bested. Mary bit his hand and stabbed him with his own knife.
I mean, it was there.
John Miller was Mary's fourth murder victim.
Oh, my.
And in 1861, she was sentenced to 10 years in a Louisiana prison on one count of murder.
Hold up. They know she has killed 4 people, and they're just giving her 10 years in prison. They're not trying to hang her by the neck until dead.
So she met John Miller in prison. It's kind of ostensibly because of this other man that she beat to death, but from what I could find, it's likely that they said that it was a matter of like protecting herself. So she likely served a short prison sentence for that. The other murders that occurred, they couldn't prove that it was her, so that never occurred. But then John Miller, she was actually, I'm sure that was not a quiet fight. So
she was red-handed or
quite literally.
Or, metal-handed or whatever you want to call it.
So she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. However, remember I said that the Civil War had widespread effects that we were not aware of.
Oh, dear.
And if this occurred with her, it makes you wonder how many other people this occurred with.
Oh, was she sent to fight?
No.
Oh.
However, once Union troops occupied New Orleans just 9 months later, Mary's sentence was reprieved by the new governor. And once she was released, she was never seen or heard from again.
Duh. I mean, of course she wasn't.
Right. So she gets out.
Took the money and run. Yeah.
And she's gone.
Of course she is.
But I told you,
she's not stupid.
Like, man, two things can be held true. You can do some really bad things, but you gotta respect a woman that will drag a previous boxer and jailer across the floor with his mace and stab him with his own knife because he was beating her with a cowhide whip.
I mean, I'm just saying. Wow. He ought not be beating a woman.
No, and she was not having it. So
she said, "You're gonna learn today."
She was not having it. So now on to our second woman for this episode. Her name is Pablita Paula Angel.
Is this like International Women's Day or something?
It's not, but it kind of is worked out that way.
I mean, like, I'm woman, hear me roar.
We are going to head over to the Southwest to New Mexico. Since we've never talked about New Mexico, we're going to do a brief overview of where New Mexico is at this point in history and just kind of some high-level information. For those who might be outside of the U.S. who are our listeners, New Mexico is kind of located, it's in the southwestern region of the United States. It's bordered by Colorado, Arizona, Texas, and the northern border of Mexico. The largest city is Albuquerque, and the capital is Santa Fe, which is the oldest state capital in the United States. And it was founded in 1610 as the government seat of Nuevo Mexico in New Spain. So when Spain came over, took over Mexico, anyways, that was the seat of the government for quite a while. So New Mexico is the fifth largest of the 50 states with over 2.1 million residents. It ranks 36th in population in the United States as well. So following Mexican independence in 1821, it became an autonomous region of Mexico, although it was threatened by centralizing policies from the Mexican government, which culminated in the revolt of 1837. At the same time, the region became more economically dependent on the United States because it's right beside Texas. So, they're kind of merging into one another. And then this is, of course, where the Mexican-American War took place. And that was in 1848. And that was when the U.S. decided to annex New Mexico as part of the larger New Mexico territory as a whole. It played a central role in the U.S.'s westward expansion and was admitted to the Union as the 47th state in 1912. So by the time of our episode this week, New Mexico is a territory of the United States, even though it's not quite a state yet. So if that makes sense. So you've got kind of like in that area, you've got New Mexico, Nevada, that are kind of encompassing that area. Because if you remember too as well, in 1861, the Colorado Territory was also just established. Mm-hmm. So it's all part of the U.S., but it's not a state yet. It's a territory of it. So that's kind of where we are at this point. So Pablita Angel said she was called Paula. She was born in 1842 in the city of Las Vegas in New Mexico, in the New Mexico Territory. She was the daughter of Manuel Angel and Soledad Crespin. I don't know why. I really like the name Soledad.
Mm-hmm. I do too. I was actually going to say that. That's kind of
very pretty. There are a lot of theories and rumors surrounding Pablita or Paula. We do know that she existed.
Number one.
She's
real.
However, it's unknown if she was 19 or 27 at the time of her crimes.
That's a bit of a difference. That's not like, 2 or 3 years difference.
Correct.
That's a bit more.
Or if her name was Pablita or Paula. A lot of people say that it actually was Pablita, but she went by Paula because that's kind of like the English quote.
That's what I was going to say. A lot of times, they you would Americanize names, you know. Right. And so that would make sense that it would be both of them. That makes sense to me.
If you go to look her up, you'll find both names for her. And so
and that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
What we do know about her is that she came from a prominent family in New Mexico. She was shy, and at the time she was unmarried. Her mother encouraged her to meet a nice man and go ahead and start a life for herself because, at the age of, we're going to say 19, she's an old maid.
Obviously. What is she going to do with her life?
Scourge on society, honestly. So there were several men who attempted to court her, but she turned all of them down.
They weren't good enough.
Well, then she met 25-year-old Juan Miguel Martin. They met in this was how it was described, a shady part of town that was known for, it was a high crime area and some sus characters hung around there.
An auspicious beginning.
And Juan happened to be there, Juan Miguel. So regardless of where it was love at first sight for Paula. What she didn't know was that Juan Miguel was already married with 5 children.
Oh, no.
And had a reputation for having affairs with other women.
He had one wife already.
He and many lovers.
Sorry.
And 5 children by the age of 25. Wow.
Oh, no. Kill me now. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
For Paula, it seemed like everything was falling into place because after some time together, Juan Miguel told Paula that he wanted to marry her. Keep in mind, she still did not know he was married.
Ooh, that was a very, very bad discovery.
Well, that was until 1861 when she walked in on Juan Miguel having an affair with another woman.
Oh, not even his wife.
Not even his wife.
Oh, no.
Juan Miguel told Paula that he didn't want to be with her anymore and that she needed to just move on.
Oh, because that's simple.
Yeah. Paula convinced Juan Miguel to meet with her just one more time. Just like, let's have another conversation. Let's, who knows?
And she set him up.
And she hid a knife under her. It said this was, I could very well not say this accurately. I believe it's a rebozo.
Very nice. I like the way you said it.
It's very common in, I want to say Mexican culture or Hispanic culture in general. I do know that what I was reading said a lot about Mexican culture. And it's kind of like a shawl headpiece. So some of them, it kind of looks like a headpiece that just kind of almost like that just covered maybe the top of the hair, but just flowed down as like a shawl.
Yeah, or it was what you're saying.
Yeah, or it was an actual shawl that they would wear just around their shoulders. It's kind of like a multi-purpose, piece of clothing. But she hid a knife under it.
I mean, she came prepared.
She waited for Juan Miguel to pull her into an embrace, and she stabbed him in the back.
He gonna learn today.
Killing him instantly.
Well, she didn't make him suffer.
Yeah.
I mean, at least there's that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't long until Paula was captured for the murder of Juan Miguel Martin, and she pled not guilty to the crime, claiming that it was a crime of passion.
I mean, I just happened to have a knife on me for protection because I was in a bad part of town. I just wanted to be prepared. It just happened to come up on me. I was confused.
So I was actually just going to say there is which we've discussed kind of before, the difference in kind of the way the law works and how the law works in very interesting ways. So there are a lot of places that you can, especially in Texas, you can claim a crime of passion. You can say the example that's always given kind of in law school is you walk in on your significant other, like in this story, you walk in on your significant other having an affair with someone, and you are so angry that in that moment you snap and you kill someone.
You lose your mind. You don't know what you're doing.
Right. That's considered a crime of passion because you were passionate in that moment. However, you cannot claim a crime of passion if there is premeditation.
Right. This wasn't when she walked in on them. This was, hey, we're meeting later. Correct. We planned this meetup.
Yep.
And
she came armed. Exactly. So because of this, the court denied her request and she was charged with his murder and sentenced to death. Pablita,
she should not have done that. She should have said it differently.
Pablita Angel was sentenced to be hanged on April 26, 1861.
By the neck until dead.
And we will get to that as well. While she was in prison, a sheriff by the name of Abad Herrera taunted and tortured her every day up until her execution.
That's unkind.
Every day he would pass by her cell and he would say something to the effect of, Paulita Angel, only 30 days until I hang you till you're dead. Every day.
Well, what a turd.
She was denied food, and by the time of her execution, the prisoners were concerned that she wouldn't, like the other prisoners, like were concerned that she wouldn't make it to the gallows. And
that's
the
not
sheriff,
cool.
Yeah, the sheriffs would force feed her vodka every day in an attempt to keep her alive.
I'm sorry. How is the vodka keeping her alive?
I don't know.
Because every girl knows that vodka is the drink to go to because it is the lowest in calories.
No, that's tequila.
Oh, wait. Maybe I decided vodka instead of tequila because I don't like tequila.
Maybe so.
Anyway, vodka is very low. So
the day... Yeah, and it's likely because vodka is readily there, but
it's Mexico.
Well,
tequila.
Tequila would have been, but it said that it was vodka. So the day of her execution came and the entire town showed up to see the hanging. They actually brought picnics and picked the best seats to see the event.
You know my feelings on that.
Exactly. The sheriff took her to a nearby cottonwood tree on a wagon that not only carried Paula, but her coffin as well.
Oh, no, she rode with her coffin?
Yes.
That's despicable.
So Paula was placed
despicable.
Hold on. Paula was placed in the noose and the sheriff pulled the wagon away from underneath her. The problem was that in his haste, he failed to bind Paula's hands.
He messed it up.
Yeah. The sheriff looked around to see, sorry guys, just a bit of this is kind of rough, so just a bit of a trigger here. To see the woman swinging around and holding on to the rope that was choking her, trying to pull it from around her neck.
As is the natural response.
Right. The sheriff jumped down from the wagon and ran to Paula, wrapped his arms around her waist, and attempted to weigh her down to facilitate her death.
Well, he is just a despicable character, is all I can say.
Some of the spectators were so appalled at the turn of events that they pushed the sheriff aside and cut Paula down. The problem was that the execution order said she was to be hanged by the neck until she was dead. At this point, she had been hanged, but she was not dead yet.
Well, he bungled it.
So they did it again. And at this time, Paula did die the second time she was hanged.
Well, but it was done correctly and humanely, I'm hoping.
We'll see. Who knows? But regardless.
I mean, as humanely as possible, as hanging someone can be.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously.
So regardless, the reason that we are discussing her is because Paulita Paula Angel was the first and last woman to be hanged in New Mexico.
Ah.
Yep.
Well,
after that, they were like, no more.
Yeah.
So it was pretty rough as far as a hanging. And we've talked about this before because we have the whole episode of the man who was hanged twice, and there was the whole debate on
that answered my question.
Yep.
I asked the question, you answered it. It was bad.
Yeah. So year of 1861 was a big year. The story of Mary Jane Jackson, while was not a long one, it was, man, too good of a story to not tell.
Yeah, she was kind of the woman. She is every woman. It's all in her. I'm just saying.
And
I would want her to be on my side.
And I honestly, did she get her knife back when they let her out of prison?
I wondered that too. I wanted to ask that. Did she leave with her knife? Did she get her knife, or did she get another one made? Because
I'm sure she paid a pretty penny, I'm sure, to have it built, to have it made in the first place. So
it was specially made for her. And seriously, guys, if you don't know the show Forged in Fire, it is so awesome. It is a reality show, but it's like a good reality show. It's not a trash reality show. I'm not a trash reality show person.
Mm-hmm.
It's a competition to make. Yes, it's iron workers. What are they called? Not iron workers, but forgers. People that forge.
Yes. People who do those things.
Yeah, what's it called? The people that made the horseshoes.
I say iron workers, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, but what are they called? The people that made the horseshoes back in the day? Anyway.
Horseshoers?
No.
Those are farriers that actually do the thing, but they do don't the work.
But no. I'm meaning the ones that actually work with the metal. I am drawing a blank, and it's making me mad. Anyway, they make different blades. Like they have a challenge to make a blade, and it is really, really cool. And there are two different levels, 2 different challenges they go through. One they make there, and then the other one they get to go home and make part of their blade on. Like they're given a specific challenge for a specific weapon from a time in history, or it's just really cool. So cool. And they put it through tests on a pig's body, or a gelatin human mold. Maybe not gelatin, but anyway, it's a simulation of an actual human, and the different bladesmen who are experts test it. And, tell them, they see if it passes the test or not. And they cut metal or other things. It's just really cool to see how these blades stand up to the test. So you should really watch it. It's really cool.
It's pretty interesting.
It really is to see how they work the metal.
Yeah, I do know it's on Discovery Plus.
Yes. It's a really cool show.
We watch way too much Discovery Plus, honestly.
Well, but it's really, I love to see how things are made. I'm so interested in that kind of thing. So I would like to see what her knife looked like. I'm just saying, it sounds like a pretty wicked blade.
It sounds pretty cool.
I'm intrigued.
But
it really does.
It sounds wild. So
she sounds like somebody I would want on my side, and I would not want to cross. I'm just saying, I would want to charm her and have her to be my friend.
So, like I said, a lot going on in 1861. We got the start of the Civil War, so we'll still have this going on for the next couple of years that we're going to discuss, history. So we'll kind of probably do the same thing where we kind of do a brief just overview of all the Civil War that's going on at the time.
Kind of where we are in the battles.
Exactly. So we do have a website where you can find any and all ONUC information you're looking for. It's onenationundercrime.com. You can find anything and everything there for us. We do have a YouTube channel too that a lot of these episodes come out on YouTube. So if anybody would like to go there and subscribe as well, you can do that because the episodes do automatically post to YouTube when the episodes come out regularly. So it's not like there's much of a lag or anything from it being posted there as well. So some people prefer YouTube. So if that's you, you can do that as well. Also, if you leave rude and snide comments, I will comment back.
Yes, she will. It's great.
So
she shares it with me, and I'm like, "Rock on, sister! Tell them this too."
Yes, we had if you want to go on an Easter egg hunt, you can go and find that slew of comments. But
it's awesome.
Wild.
Look, you're not ready. You are not ready, you crazy little people. You are not ready. You just don't even know.
Just don't be rude. Like there's no need. And I
be kind. Be kind.
I don't tolerate those things very well.
And when costs you 0 cents.
Just like I said, 0
to be kind. And 0 cents to be kind and move on.
So it's if you want to go to our YouTube, you can definitely do that. Like I said, if you prefer to listen to it on there, it also will do some automatic closed captioning for anybody who may need that. But I can't guarantee that it's 100% accurate. So just
I'm
a
little bit
aware.
Southern.
Well, it also just some of them are not super accurate. So just be aware of that. And we do not, just also for further information, we are not the ones that transcribe those. That's an automatic transcriber through YouTube. So either way, we appreciate you guys for listening to this week's episode of One Nation Under Crime. We will see you here same time.
Different crime, not in a Cinderella mouse voice.
Next week. And remember that there isn't always liberty and justice for all. However, I guess if you're Mary Jane Jackson, you can dole out your own justice.
I mean, if you are a husky
redhead,
I'm just saying, she might be my hero. I don't know.
I'm just saying, two truths can be held at the same time.
If only she loved Jesus.
She might have. Who knows?
I don't know. Well, from her actions, I'm thinking maybe not.
Who knows?
I don't know. I still love her because that's what I'm told to do.
Regardless, we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.